I've lived in Dallas for decades, but I am not a Cowboys fan. Steelers.
We're going to take this one out, all right?
Steelers, Penguins, long-suffering Pirates fan. I bleed black and gold. Those are my roots.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Spool, hosted by Dr. Nils Roemer, Dean of the Bass School at UT Dallas.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Good
Brian.
to see you.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So glad that we can catch up here a little bit.
Yes, let's do this.
Today we're joined by Brian Cuban, a Dallas-based author and nationally recognized advocate for mental health, addiction recovery, and eating disorder awareness. His debut novel, The Ambulance Chaser, is actually currently turned into a motion picture.
Yeah, production starts 2026.
Very exciting. Now, more than 18 years into recovery, Brian continues to use his platform to help others find theirs. Brian, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe before we get into it, the moment one says, welcome Brian Cuban, then there's always, you have a brother, right?
Yeah, I get it all the time.
You have a brother.
I have two brothers. My older brother, Mark, obviously people in Dallas know. And then I have a younger brother, Jeff. So I am the middle.
So tell me, Brian, you know, your brother, but also your whole history of recovery means that there's a lot about you that's very public.
Yes.
How have you dealt with that challenge? I mean, the idea usually is we like to separate out our private lives from our public lives. In your case, not so much.
I learned a long time ago that this is what it is. That's my last name,
right? And
it doesn't bother me at all. And it's a matter of fact that if being related to someone that famous gets more people to listen to my message, I'm all for it. Doesn't mean I don't have my own identity, but yes, that's fine with me. You know, I love my brothers dearly, and we're close. We live walking distance to each other here in Dallas, and that's perfectly acceptable.
And also your whole history of recovery is always kind of out in the public, but in lots of ways, in order for you to really take the role of an advocate, that was never a choice for you to keep your own biography a private one, right?
Well, as far as that goes, true. But it wasn't a choice anyone else made for me. Back in about 2013, when I wrote Shattered Image, that was the first time I had really gone public with my recovery from both bulimia, exercise bulimia, and substance use disorder, cocaine and alcohol. And so that wasn't Mark's choice, it wasn't my younger brother's choice, it was my choice. And they both, and my family, my parents both alive at that time, they supported me wholeheartedly.
We talk constantly about social media and how our lives are so public. Do you think that today the readiness in our society to talk about these things openly is greater than it was?
Absolutely. When I first developed an eating disorder, it was in 1979. And when I was a freshman at Penn State, I developed bulimia, which is binging and purging. And that was before there was a conversation for either men or women, right? And now it's still very stigmatized for males, because males, people don't normally associate a male with having an eating disorder. But that was also 4 years before the wonderful singer and drummer Karen Carpenter would pass away from complications related to anorexia, bringing eating disorders into the pre-digital national spotlight, but also kind of cementing the stereotype as something only women went through. So I was way before that.
I was about to say, you kind of broke the trend early on. So nowadays you would say that there's a greater readiness and also greater willingness to talk about these disorders in men? Or is that still the frontier, so to
I
speak?
think it's still a frontier.
Okay.
I think there is more than there was that when I was going through it, because we have more outlets, whether it's social media, TikTok, or whatever, right? But it's still stigmatized. Only 1 in 10 males will seek treatment.
All right.
Despite making up about 25 to 30% of the eating disorder population.
Do you see there being generational differences? I mean, we are here at UT Dallas, so we're surrounded by the age group 18 and above. Is it better for the younger ones? Is
There's more awareness.
Awareness and
There's
readiness?
more awareness from the parents. There's more awareness from student groups. I think we have many more options for students. There were none
Right.
in my day. And yeah, there is much more generational awareness. When I first went public, I spoke at colleges all the time. And now I don't because I've kind of aged out of it, and you bring in people.
Well, we're back here.
Yeah,
you know?
we're back.
Part of what we're seeing here on campus is that on the one side, mental health issues in the widest sense seem to be more prevalent than
Yes.
ever. But also the readiness of students to talk about it and seek out help is
Yeah.
greater than it was.
Yeah, and I
So
have to
there's
wonder, are
kind
they
of
more
both.
prevalent or we just have more awareness?
Very true.
I'm a baby boomer. That was not a sharing generation. My father was the greatest generation.
That's the silent one, right?
Yeah.
The one before.
Yeah, before that was the
Right.
silent generation. My father was at the tail end of the greatest generation. That's not a sharing generation. Really, the advent of social media really taking hold and the sharing really, I think, started with millennials. And I think there'll be a much different environment, even a next generation and beyond that, in terms of how we view sharing about drinking issues, sharing about substance use issues, sharing about depression, and that's a good thing.
Sharing, another way of thinking about it is really telling a story about oneself, right? And that's something that is, these days, we're all constantly told storytelling is the most powerful
Absolutely.
way of doing anything that we
That's what
want to
I
do,
do.
whether we want to sell a product or whether we want to find a job or whether we want to deal with ourselves, storytelling it is. So in a way, I think storytelling has been part of your recovery and healing
Absolutely.
as well.
Storytelling has been vital to my recovery and vital to my advocacy.
Right.
Because people don't respond to data. They respond to connecting in empathetic moments. They respond to connecting in emotional moments. They respond to picking pieces of stories and saying, wow, that could be me. And it is that connection that may cause them or trigger them or just get them thinking, maybe I want to talk to someone. Maybe I want to share my story. There is nothing more powerful than story.
Just before we sat down here around this table, you and I just talked a little bit about the Holocaust and its memory and how it, been part also of your extended family. Often when we think about Holocaust and the ways in which we inherited it is through the history of trauma, right? And then there's a sense that trauma perpetuates also other illnesses later on. Have you ever had a sense that there's some connection about it generationally, what we inherited and your own biographical?
For me, no, personally. It was my great aunt.
Right.
It wasn't as linear as a lot of people when you talk about generational trauma from the Holocaust. But it was a very, the search for them, and as I told you, I only had a picture of them. It said
right.
murdered in Yiddish on the back.
Right.
That search was very empowering and very connective to me as a Jew. So I found it very fulfilling and very obviously tragic that they were murdered.
Storytelling, you do it in any shape and form, right? You are sitting around here, you're telling your story, but what I find intriguing is you write blogs, but then you wrote fiction and nonfiction.
Yes.
And so is it, normally we kind of divide this, right? And there are the fiction writers and the nonfiction writer. Is the way of dealing with the legacies of your upbringing and your strife with substance abuse, is it different whether you do it in fiction and nonfiction?
Absolutely different, and that's a great question. I've written 2 memoirs.
That's right.
And I've always had that in mind, right? I was terrible at math, but I like to write.
Right.
And how many times can you tell your own story just through a memoir? I was done with that.
Right.
And the ambulance chaser genesis was a reoccurring dream I had about growing up in Pittsburgh and with my best friend, and it's creepy, throwing bodies into a bonfire in this open field by our house.
Right.
And these bodies, kind of these 8-ball eyes just stared back at me. And then all of a sudden the dream would fast forward to present day and I would wake up just shaking because I thought the police were outside where I was being caught.
Right.
Okay. past secrets come back to haunt present day. Skeletons in the closet, not a new concept,
Right.
but there are no really new story. There are really no new plots in fiction, right? They're like 8 to 10, or some people say 16. So whatever you watch or whatever you read,
variation of
it's just
any
a
one of them.
variation of
That's
the
right.
same thing.
Right.
The hero's journey, right? And so I thought about, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to write a story. So that's how it started. And learning the art of writing fiction, I wrote it in first person present because my novels were written in first person present, my memoirs. And so it was a learning process. The way a true novel should be, you build your characters from ground up. But I was learning as I go. The protagonist is Jewish. The protagonist had a Holocaust history. The protagonist had a Yiddish mother, as a grandmother.
Right.
So all these, there was a lot of me in the protagonist.
But there was more choice, right? You could have created that character in any way you would have wanted
True.
to,
I didn't
right?
know enough to do that, though. I
Right.
was learning as I
Right.
went in writing fiction.
But that's where my question was going. Saying that suggests also that it was another way to think about yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? That's
Absolutely. Jason mirrors a lot of my struggles. Jason Feldman, which is after my mother's maiden name.
Right.
So he mirrors a lot of my struggles. And so there is a lot of me in that character. But obviously, but now the sequel, The Body Brokers, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much. I focused harder on creating interesting and unique characters. And so it was all really learning how to write.
How to write?
It was learning how to write.
But was it, for you a different, not just simply different way of dealing with yourself, but also would you in the end feel that that was a very different experience, fiction versus nonfiction?
Absolutely.
Did you feel differently about yourself
The
afterwards?
first book I did, because the first book was really a continued exploration of a lot of my things and getting out things about me, pieces of me that maybe the public didn't know. The Body Brokers was more issues driven. It was about the fentanyl crisis and about a treatment center that was really a front for a fentanyl distribution ring. I went from exploring myself to exploring issues, kind of my own genesis as a writer, my own journey.
Going back to Pittsburgh, I visited Pittsburgh over the last couple of years on and off because of one of my sons studied there. It would have been a fairly dark and gray environment of sorts, right?
You'd be right. It was dark and gray, and it all kind of came to a head in I would like the mid '80s to '90, which was the years of the complete collapse of the steel industry in Pittsburgh, and it really took a hit and became a very depressed town. It has since turned things around, and it has become one of the most desired cities to live in the country, believe it or not.
Very friendly, very open.
Very tech-friendly.
Very tech-friendly.
Yeah. And I studied at the University of Pittsburgh, and I lived on campus.
I always admire the space. What is it called? The Tower of Learning, or
the Cathedral of Learning.
Cathedral of
Now,
Learning.
the interesting thing there is
Incredible place.
Major event from the ambulance chaser takes place in the Cathedral of Learning.
So in other words, Dallas space, but still very much otherwise tied of sorts to
I'm very tied to my
Pittsburgh
roots.
And your roots?
I'm very tied to my roots. I've lived in Dallas for decades, but I'm not a Cowboys fan. Steelers.
We're going to take this one out, all right?
Steelers, Penguins, long-suffering Pirates fan. I bleed black and gold. Those are my roots. And I grew up as a massive baseball fan. Mark used to take me down there. It was old, the Three River Stadium. Now it's PNC Park.
Right.
And he would stop at a deli and buy a corned beef sandwich, and he would bribe the security guard at the stadium to let us all through with a couple corned beef sandwiches.
Did you always put fries in your sandwiches? Are you
That's
still doing this?
the rest. Not unless I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, right.
Permante's. That's Permante's. Yeah.
But you're still doing it here once in a while?
No, if I'm in Pittsburgh, I'll get a Permante's.
But
not so much here. I'm got to watch. Watching the pounds. But yeah, I mean, I love going back to Pittsburgh. I don't get there back as much as I like because both my parents have now passed, and so when my mom finally passed in 2022, we sold the family home, and so I go back and I see my law school roommates. And actually, the University of Pittsburgh, I started a student wellness fund that I seeded with funds, and it is going strong today, and they renamed it the Brian Cuban Wellness Fund.
Oh, fantastic.
So, I'm not a big fan of legacy.
Well, but that's a good
but
legacy. I mean, that's
I'm
always
happy that people benefit from it, right? Because in my mind, you know what? I'll be underground and we'll never know. You know, so what's the difference? Now that's, you know.
But that's a nice legacy, knowing that in a way you will continuously help others.
Yeah, assuming it continues going, I think that's great.
Right.
I think that's great. And they have used it for all kinds of things, to help people get counseling when they couldn't afford it, to help people with housing when they were having trouble, and that's what I wanted, right?
Well, I mean, what we know these days is, in particular, coming out of the pandemic, that the needs for counseling and other services are greater than ever for that generation.
Yeah, and on college
they didn't come into an easy time, you know, in terms of where we are respectively today in our society, and they have lots of challenges on
It is, and especially for college students. I won't speak to UTD because I have no idea, but on a lot of college campuses, you can't even get in, right, to see a therapist.
No.
It's a months-long wait.
It's difficult.
And there's just not enough therapists out there. The psychiatry profession is shrinking tremendously. As you know, doctors no longer want to mess with insurance, and they're aging out of it, and they retire. And so even if you have the privilege of health insurance,
doesn't necessarily mean
you're going to get help.
No. And you have to also find the right person. I mean, that you're feeling, you know, that you can fight in and so that you can speak to. We talked about your own process of recovery, and you speak always very openly about it. You know, what I'm curious about, what does that mean daily for you? Do you have I mean, you've been going at this for a long time, so do you have like a daily routine or process, or because this is ongoing, right?
Well, there was an evolution. I go to 12-step meetings.
Okay.
I do that, and I've done that for all of my recovery, you know, over 18 and a half years now. And I have come to a place, and I'm still in therapy. No shame in that. I'm still in therapy. I've seen a therapist for a long time. And so it really has evolved, and I've aged too, right? I've aged out of, you know, a lot of the things that got me in trouble. And and then therapy has brought me to the process where I'm able to look in the mirror, you know, with losing my hair, you know, no longer, you know, just with all my flaws and imperfections, and say that's okay.
That's me.
And that's me. And for a long time, that wasn't that. I had a very negative self-image. Growing up, I was a heavy kid. I was fat shamed and bullied tremendously. And this was when bullying was brick and mortar, right? It was in your face. I was an obese. I was called a fat pig, had to go to Sears back when Sears was a thing and get a bra.
I was about to say, let's remind everyone what Sears is. Right?
You have to. Sears is no longer, I think. Or
gonna have a little bubble that come up. Sears used to be, right?
Yeah. And I was physically assaulted over my weight. So there's that kind of trauma.
Going all the way back to when you were like going to school?
In high school.
In high school, okay.
In high school, I was beaten up because a pair of pants looked funny on me, and too tight. And they tore off my pants down to my underwear, ripped them into shreds, and threw them in the street. Down to my tighty whities. I was wearing a Pittsburgh Pirates t-shirt, and I had to walk a mile home, you know, covering up my underwear. And that trauma stuck with me all of my life. And even when I thought I compartmentalized it, and so I'm over that, trauma has a funny way of showing up again and coming out when you least expect it, and you may not even know what's driving it. So I was always searching through substances for something to allow me to look in the mirror and love myself for the first time. Alcohol, cocaine. I became heavily addicted to cocaine as a lawyer. And through, you know, losing my career as a lawyer because of that. And so it was struggling. I've been to a local psychiatric facility twice. I came close to ending my life by suicide, July of 2005. I've been to jail for DWI, you know, failed marriages. I have a long resume of dysfunction related to substance use.
If you don't mind, let's get into this in a different way. And I think there's a connection, cats, and being passionate about pets, but also losing them and having the ability to grieve and mourn. Is that part of your healing process as well? I have cats, so I'm relating. So mine are two brothers. One is a black tuxedo and the other one is an orange one. and they're like always neck to neck, and so you become really emotional.
I have never felt worse grief than first losing my beagle, and then we just lost a cat. We've lost my first cat, Useless was her name. She lived till about 16. And then
I call mine often Doolittle, so that's like in the same vicinity.
And
right?
then we just recently, 6 months ago, lost our cat Mimi, our Maine Coon, to cancer. We died way too young. And the grief of losing my animals was more intense than the grief of losing my parents. And people may say, what are you talking about? Well, you can talk to your parents. You know what your parents are going through. You prepare.
Right.
They have the ability, you have the ability to share with them.
Right.
But you can't take away, you can't communicate that way with your pets. And you want them to so badly to tell you, I'll start tearing up.
Right.
You want them to tell you so badly that it's okay.
Right.
That it's okay. And the grief of losing my pets and the anticipatory grief.
Right.
Knowing that it's getting close, just, brutal.
No, and it makes
absolutely
it
brutal.
puts you also into these god-awful situations, because at some point you have to weigh their well-being over yours, and you know.
And you're the only one that can do it.
And
they
you're
can't
the only
tell
one
you.
exactly. And
They
so I
can't
think
tell you it's time.
you have like tough choices when you are realizing that they're suffering from something, that they're in pain,
with my parents, there was all these people around, and you know
there
it's
are others
coming.
who do,
and you have the intellectual conversations. Now, my father, when he passed, dementia took him a couple years, so that was very difficult. And my mom passed from cancer. But you have the conversations, right? And we have the gift of consciousness and self-awareness, and we express that.
Was the experience of it, and then the kind of mourning that came along with it, would you say that that's in a way also a process of healing?
It is. I cried tremendously. I remember when I lost my beagle, I would drive through neighborhoods in Dallas screaming at the top of my lungs, because I didn't want my wife to hear it. Just screaming, pounding the steering wheel, screaming, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Because I had to put her down. Yes, it was getting it out. You have to. You have to get it out. You have to let grief take its course, as hard as it feels.
But it sounds to me as if it's just as much part of like really embracing who you are with all of your feelings and all the emotions that you had to do in so many other ways as well.
It is, and I'm just that kind of person, right? That is who I am. I'm middle child syndrome. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm the guy that a note of music can get me bawling. Watching a movie trailer can get me bawling. And that is just who I am. If it wasn't for my two brothers, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be dead. My father, Norty, was the middle of three boys like me. And he and his older brother, Marty, ran what is called an auto trim shop, and they just reupholstered car seats. That's all they did. And they put on convertible tops, and they ran it together, and it was often like a bad marriage. And then they had a younger brother, Larry, who was a professor at Stanford, and he's still with us. He's the remaining brother. They were, it was not always friendly, but they were close, right? In the way the Greatest Generation and the Silent Generation, Larry, can be close.
Right.
And so he always instilled that in Mark, Jeff, and I. Growing up, he would always tell us in one form or another, and often explicitly, no matter what happens, no matter where you go, whether it's across the city, across the state, across the country, across the world, you pick up that phone and you call your brother. You tell your brother you love him, and you make sure your brother's okay. He was giving us the gift of family, which is a privilege.
No, it is.
Which is a privilege, because a lot of people come from incarcerated families, broken families, estranged families, especially where addiction is concerned. And he was giving us this gift. And the second time, when I finally had my quote-unquote rock bottom, I was standing in the parking lot of Green Oaks, the psychiatric facility, for the second time. First time was after my near suicide. And standing in that parking lot, I realized I was going to lose my family. And not lose their love, but they had had enough. They had tried to get what they could. It had to be me. I was no longer seeing my nieces and nephews. I was no longer seeing my parents. I stayed away from my father. I didn't want to disappoint him. And I didn't want to lose my family. And so it was the gift of family that finally allowed me to take that first step into recovery, and I began my recovery journey the next day.
Wow.
If not for family, I would not be here.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It
you
was
for
a
having
pleasure.
us.